whenua.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa, ko te Moana Harrison, tuku ingoa, ko Pakariki rawa, ko Moana Harrison, oku mātua, ko Ngāti Parau ki Haratanga, me ngā puhi oku iwi. My name is Moana. My parents are Paki and Moana Harrison. I come from Kennedy Bay, Haratanga, which is 25 minutes northeast of Coromandel town, where we've lived most of our life, and my mum is from Mangamuka. My dad, who's now deceased, was awarded a doctorate in literature from the Auckland University. He had a QSO, he was a New Zealand icon, and he spearheaded Toi Iho, which was a Māori-made trademark, which was developed for quality and authenticity in Māori art. This that I'm wearing today is the mark. He also developed the New Zealand quality standards for whakairo carving, and most of all, he was a tohunga whakairo, a master carver. Coromandel Independent Living Trust, Artists in the Making, have asked me to do a presentation on tukutuku. This is my first time doing a presentation like this, so I'm a bit nervous but feel honoured to participate. I will begin my presentation with a karakia in Māori, then English. The visuals are of my pieces. The first piece is Papatūnuku. Whakarongo ki te tangi a te tui, tui tui, tui tuia. Tuia I rongo, tuia I raro, tuia I roto, tuia I waho, tuia I te moka here tangata. E tākia mai e Hawaii nui, Hawaii roa, Hawaii pamama, te hono e wairua. Simply put, it's listen to the sound of the tui. The sound echoes above us, below us, inside of us and around us. Muka, the fibres of the flax, is the thread that binds us and connects us back to our spiritual homelands of Hawaii. Just going back to this first piece, Papatūnuku, my Mother Earth, that I was commissioned to do that piece about 15 years ago. So, yeah, she was one of my beloved pieces. She's living in America now. So my journey with my tukutuku pieces that I've tried to do is to take tukutuku panels out of the meeting house and into people's homes or workplace. Show it as an art piece, its beauty, its tradition, its wairua. My Māori art education spans back 45 years. As a whānau, we have carved and woven 10 marae under the guidance of our parents, who are tohunga, in a class of their own in the Māori and Pākehā art and literary world, my ultimate teachers. Learning a kete whakairo, korowai, piu-piu, tāneko, kōwhaiwhai, whāraki, along the way, my passion is tukutuku weaving, something I'm constantly challenged by. I envision tukutuku panels side by side with art from all over the world, coming out of the shadows of the carvings, kete and Bible work, sought after by collectors. There are no boundaries with tukutuku, and I am merely one medium used to keep alive our art and our culture. This piece is Te Whare o Rangi, the House of Rangi, Skyfather. Just talking a bit now on the origins of tukutuku. Unlike whakairo, kowhaiwhai, rāranga, tāmoko, and other Māori art forms, there are no direct references to tukutuku in mythology, and perhaps only one indirect reference, the story of Pingao and Kākoho. I love this story, so I'd like to tell you about it. Pingao, a child of Tangaroa, and Kākoho, a child of Tāne, Pingao, enamoured by the young and handsome Kākoho, asks permission of her father Tangaroa to leave the sea to go to Kākoho, who's on land. Her father warned her that she would never make it to land. The children of Papatuanuku saw her, intervened, and harvested Pingao and Kākoho to unite them in tukutuku panels on the walls of the wharenui. This story captured my soul, and this is what began my love of tukutuku. Tukutuku today, as we know it, was born as a means of lashing the walls of whare. The tohunga sitting inside the whare would poke a long, sharp, needle-type instrument through to the student who sat outside the whare. An ancient technique known as kohia, where Kākoho was wrapped with straps of flax and scorched, gave the Kākoho a patterned effect. From this developed the birth of formal binding, evolving into formal tukutuku patterns. And pura whitu, this pattern here, is credited as the first stitching pattern. There are 12 universal traditional patterns that we work by under. I will name them for you and just give a simple meaning background to the stitches. Pura whitu is the star-like stitch. It the saying goes, as many stars as there is in the sky, so are the people on the earth. So that's pura whitu. Patiki is a diamond shape pattern. It represents the flounder, which also represents harvest, plentiful food. That's another stitch. Takitoru is a 3 single stitch, which represents conversation. Who are you? Where do you come from? Where are you going? Then we have another stitch called papakirango, which is different ways of doing diamond shapes, which means the fly swat. So this pattern is used to represent death. Back in the day, they had the fans they used to use to keep the flies from the bodies. So papakirango represents this, our dead. Kaukau. Kaukau represents war, but it also represents nurturing. It has a double meaning, kaukau. Neho taniwha is the teeth of the taniwha. Then we have a stitch called roimata, which is crying, sadness, that kind of thing. Waharua kōpito, which is also diamond shapes, represents intermarriage, intertribal Mumu is also represents the same thing, but is a wharenui pattern. And then we have the potama pattern, which is ascending on your journey of learning. And we also have parau potama, parairangi potama, which also is the creation myth. And last of all, we have tukutuku-Conference, which are the stitches that we use to bind the tukutuku before we do the patterns on it. Tukutuku-Conference is credited as the strength, so it's the backbone. If someone's your tukutuku-Conference, they are your backbone. It looks, when it's completed, it has the look of an eel's bone structure in the eel. I'm going to talk a little bit now on the significance of colour and stitches. As tukutuku evolved and horizontal slats were introduced as flat timber sticks covering the vertical kākoho which lined the walls of the whare, colour and the type of stitches were a natural progression. Where previously the cross stitch, purapura whetū, was the primary stitch for the stability of the whare, Māori, who are naturally artistic, realised that this form can be used by way of patterns and stitching to speak to the kaupapa of the whare and enhance the kōrero of the carvings. Before the written word, this is how our myths, legends, tupuna and history were recorded. Earliest records of colour are red and black, which give a checked-like effect. Red being the colour of man, of Tuamatauenga, the god of man and war. Black references to Te Pō, the nothingness, the beginning. White, the light, after the separation of Ranginui and Papatuanuku by their son. My father, Dr. Paki Harrison, in his time, was instrumental in introducing colours of the rainbow as in nature. Some colours are tribal, and to the expert trained eye of whakairo and meeting houses, reveals a hidden language of the ancients. The stitches that evolved also enhance the story being told through Māori symbolisms, in this case, specific stitches, e.g. takitori stitch, who are you, where do you come from, and where are you going? A surgeon from Auckland Hospital who commissioned me to do a tukutuku panel for his office told me this stitch reminded him of the marks for DNA. So I hope you enjoyed my talk on tukutuku and some of the visuals that I have. It's numerous. I could have bought 100 visuals, but this is the first time that I'm doing this. So, yeah, so I hope you found it informative and interesting. Would anybody like to ask me any questions? The floor's open.
Is there anywhere online that we can learn more about these stitches, please?
Do I answer that?
Yeah, so you can answer. So that might be up online anyway. Yeah.
Online that you can learn more about these stitches. Yes, there is. there's a lot of documentation now online. One of my mentors, Peter Boyd, who's now a doctor professor, he actually did his doctorate fully on tukutuku. So, and there are books online that you can look for, which will explain in more detail the significance and the meanings of the universal stitches that we use. I hope that answers your question. Would it be encouraged? Yes, no, we use these patterns and stitches in kete whakairo, our weaving, whariki, our mats. They are our go-to patterns. They are our universal patterns. So yes, we use them. Another question: to do tukutuku in our studio for people with disabilities. Should avoid in terms of tikanga. Well, actually, tukutuku, you can do anything you like. Like one time, my mother and I, we did a little tukutuku piece, and it was a crayfish, like actual crayfish. The techniques, or you've got to learn the techniques on how to graph it. But once you graph it, you can graph anything, and you can do anything on tukutuku. It doesn't have to be traditional. If you're not comfortable with doing traditional because you don't know that much about it, you can do anything that you draw, and then from the drawing to the graph, you can do in tukutuku. Kia ora Moana, how do you utilise your mahi? Do you work with groups? Yes, I've been doing a workshop with Kilt, Coromandel Independent Living Trust in Coromandel, and we started off at the basics with the harakeke, kono, and as we went on, I tried to find out what interested these people. What do they really want to learn? And we did a little tukutuku piece at the Kilt for Te Mana Tangata. And I believe now it is the logo for Arts Access. The conference. And that turned out really beautiful because it became a collaboration between traditional and contemporary, Māori, Pākehā. So I'm really, really happy. Right, okay. Do you mind moving the corridor for the last visual and how the patterns have been used to convey?
This one. I don't know. They have to put it up, I think.
Oh.
Ask them.
So yeah, there
it is.
So this tukutuku panel was actually woven by my mother, and it's a tāneko piece. And she wove it in tukutuku, and this became the top of a table. So when this piece was finished, of course, with the tikanga, you couldn't put anything in the design that would be offensive to having food or anything else put on top of it. This tāneko pattern, it represents patikitiki, flounder food, harvesting, prosperity, words like that. Yeah, so that's how this piece
Talk about each colour.
came about.
Talk about the colours. What colours? Just say what colours, what you see.
Yeah, so is there any more questions? Anybody got any more questions? Right, colours. Colours. Well, different tribes usually affiliate to different colours. Different areas, you know, you can expand on that. For me, in the Hauraki, and because back in the day, the ancients, the tāmoko was blue. So there was a special resin that could only be found on the Kirita mountain, which as you come over to the Coromandel township. From that, they sourced the blue, which was used on the men for tāmoko. Hence, in our wharenui, Rākairoa in Kennedy Bay, the tāmoko on all our po are blue. So that's a tribal colour. Other colours, you know, you can expand on your colours. I mean, nature is full of colours. And so we take that, you know, it enhances the look of it, and also it's got the meaning if you know what you're trying to produce in the piece. Another question. Tukutuku remind you of the mats ever used in mats? Tukutuku is not used to make mats, but the patterns are, the designs are. So that's probably why it reminds you of the Polynesian mats. Our designs are very similar throughout the Polynesia, Melanesia, I believe. Yeah. So, yeah. So whāraki is the method used to make the mats. And yes, we do use these universal patterns in whatever we weave. I know it's a lot to take in, and there's so much more to it. I've just given you a little taste of Māori art, and especially tukutuku, because it is my passion, tukutuku, and it's something I enjoy doing immensely. Harvesting the kēkia, going into the bush, preparing it. Back in the day, we had the natural dyes. The paru was black. The tanikaha bark for the brown reds, and the white, the natural colour of the kēkia, which is a climber. Climbs up native trees in the bush. It's a long blade leaf. Looks a little bit like kati grass. That is the favoured material for tukutuku and kiti whakairo. Recently, because of the lack of prepared kēkia and weather, because it's seasonal when you do harvesting, only certain times of the year, we used harakeke for our piece that we did for Kilt in Coromandel, harakeke, and I've never used harakeke before to do tukutuku. So, and that was really amazing to use the harakeke, because harakeke is a totally different entity to pingao and kēkea. Pingao, it grows in the sand dunes along some beaches. Not very many. I have hardly seen pingao on my travels. I wouldn't know where, or even if it's still, growing like how it used to when I first learnt 40 years ago under Una Marino. She was my tutor. It was prolific. It was everywhere. Now not so much, and I think it's very hard to grow as well. Kēkea, there's still massive lots of kēkea, and of course harakeke, massive lots of harakeke. So they're the preferred materials to use now. When we were doing meeting houses, we found that we would have liked to done natural dyes, but because of the amount and extent of the work, we got into the commercial dyes to dye our pieces, to do the meeting houses. As a family, we have completed, under the tuition of my mum and dad, 10 meeting houses around New Zealand, fully carved, fully woven, ko whai, big team of people. But it was a wonderful experience as a family, working under my mum and dad. Very privileged. We were very privileged family. And a few of us are still doing it today. My younger brother, he is heavily into the carving scene. A lot of his work now is restoring a lot of the carvings that our father did years ago, and things like that. My mother, who's now 91, she doesn't do weaving so much anymore. Her passion was moka, the fibre from the flax, and korowai, feathers, and moka korowai. It would take her 9 months to prepare all her pieces, her moka, her feathers, natural dyes for her moka, and another 9 months to weave it. So she used to say it was easier to build a house quicker to build a house than to weave a korowai. A question just come up. Can you use any type of thread, or does it need to be traditional? No, it doesn't have to be traditional. If you're doing a piece, you can use whatever you have. The thing about using the traditional, like the kēkea and the harakeke, is it's free. All you have to do is harvest it and prepare it. So the answer to your question, you can use whatever you want to use, but there's nothing like the traditional materials. Hope that answers all your questions. Are there anybody else have a question for me? By the way, I'm in Coromandel town at the moment. Lovely day here. Okay, well, thank you for your time. Thank you for this opportunity to do a presentation on tukutuku. Kia ora.